coming to the Film Companion Director's Choice segment. Today, of course, Vikram Motwane is presenting Anurag Kashyap's Black Friday, which is a really grim, very it's a tough movie. It's a tough movie, and it's just a really grim reminder of what the world is. And the performances in this film and that one song, Are Ruk Ja Re Bande, Are Tham Ja Re Bande, has never left me. It has just never left me. It gave me goosebumps then, and it will do it again today. But I want to get them on stage, but before that I want to tell you a little story about Vikram. And this was my great moment of pride in Vikram, because I was at the Cannes Film Festival in 2010, and his film, Udaan, had been selected for a certain regard. It was the first Indian film to have an official selection in 7 years. Okay? I would go to Cannes every single year and sort of walk around with my head down like, yeah, you know, we've got so much glamour, but where are our movies, you know? And I walked up and, you know, Cannes, they show the movies at this amazing place called the Palais, and on the wall of the Palais was the names of all the directors whose films were in selection. And there was Vikramaditya Motwane next to Godard. I took pictures. I was like a little fangirl. I took pictures and I was like, Vikram! I sent it to you. Yeah, I was so excited. So here is Vikram Motwane.
When we were talking about doing a whole series of Director Presents, I just figured that this is a film because for me personally, and so when people ask me, tell me the films that have been the most important films in the last 10 years of Indian cinema, there's always two films that I talk about. One is Lagero Munna Bhai and the other is Black Friday. Because I think these two, in a sense, represent two extremes, but also two of the best of what we can achieve and what we can do with movie making in this country. So Black Friday for me on a personal level, so I met Anurag sometime in the late 90s, Deepa Mehta's Water and Earth, you were doing dialogues for and the dubbing thing, and I said something in the dubbing theatre. You said, this is very nice, some stupid line I suggested to you. So, and then he made Panch, and of course everybody knows the story of Panch. And come Black Friday time, I know he's writing this script on this book based on this, the Blast by Hussain Zaidi. And I, at the same point of time, at that time I'm writing my Udaan, and I go to him with the script, and he reads it, and we have a whole discussion on that. And it was the worst time in the world, I think, for Anurag at that point in time. I don't know if it's been the worst time, but I think probably around the worst time. And yet I'm seeing a guy who's smiling and who's at it every single day, trying to get this film made, trying to get this, and completely against the grain. In that point in time, the fact that you're making a film, you're trying to make an epic film at 1/10 the cost of what it should have been made at. You're making it with newcomers, you're fighting everybody in the industry at that point in time, not just, I mean, literally and figuratively, you're fighting everybody. I wasn't an assistant on the film, but I've seen the process of him actually sort of like writing the script. I've read the script, and I've been to the shoot, and I've seen this entire process of him shooting this film over days and different, and how is he doing it? I'm trying to figure out how he's doing it. I'm going to ask him afterwards, of course, after this, because it's my final chance to ask. He never lets me, he never answers the questions I ask him normally, so today I have my chance to ask him stuff. And then the film finishes, and he ends up making this film, which is a 5-hour sprawling kind of like, it doesn't make sense to anybody. And I've seen him then sort of cut the film down to the film it actually is today. And again, that time, because again there's no money, so I think he was trying to find someone to cut a trailer. He said, "Tu katega?" I said, "Katunga." So I started cutting the trailers. And as I was watching the film more and more, and watching scenes after scene after scene, I realized that this guy has really gone and made a great movie, because there's so much to like, there's so much to enjoy, from the performances that are there in the film, to the technicalities of it, to the bold strokes and the bold steps that no one at that point in time would take in a movie. You know, interrogation room is red. Who would have thought of that? Or the fact that you've got the whole introduction of Dawood Ibrahim in a comedy scene, literally. And you know, there's things he's done which are not the norm. And that's what's amazing about this film, is that at a time when it's almost impossible to get any film made, Anurag took a step and made this film, which has been a sort of watershed and a you know, a blueprint for a whole bunch of filmmakers afterwards. And again, for me, just watching that film personally was such a learning experience. Years afterwards, he did produce my film. Today, he is my partner. So the fact that nothing makes me prouder to then sort of call him up over here and chat with him. So finally, I'm going to ask you: is that how do you do it? How do you, in those moments, at that point of time when all that stuff was happening around you, where, personal, work-wise, Panch is not releasing, all kinds of things are happening. You're out there, you're writing this script. You don't have a budget to make it, and you're fighting. And how do you do it?
I don't know. I had nothing to lose. In the sense, there's no other way to go. You're up against the wall, and you somehow have to just go out and do it. In the sense that I was at that point, anybody would have given me any amount of money, I would have made a film in it. And while doing it, I figure out what to do, what not to do. Because we have made films with no money. Actually, Gulal was made without money over a period of time. But I don't know.
You weren't supposed to direct this film originally. You were only supposed to write this.
I was supposed to write. It was meant to be a TV series for Aaj Tak. Aaj Tak was a new channel, and they wanted to do a 6-part mini-series at that time, which was a great idea. And Aditya Bhattacharya, who made Rak, was supposed to direct it. Midday was producing it. And they had seen Panch, and Aditya Bhattacharya loved Panch. So he wanted me to write it. And I read the book, and I was given the book had not released then. Hussain Zaidi was working with Midday, and book had not released, and I got the unedited version of the book, which was much thicker than what came out. And there's a lot that he could not include in the book. Hussain Zaidi recommended me. There was a human rights lawyer, Sebastian. He had compiled a book called Voices, which was kind of floating around. Nobody published that book. So it was a manuscript of Voices, which was testimonies of people who were picked up and arrested and everything. So he said, I must read that book to get the other perspective too. And the irony is, Sebastian was the lawyer who fought to get Black Friday not released, banned. But the thing is that Voices and this unedited manuscript, it had just so much material. I was fascinated by it. And since it was a TV series, so we started writing it down like a TV series. But I was thinking this should come together as a movie, because the idea of a TV series, 6-part miniseries didn't exist in my head then. Today I would happily turn everything from Black Friday to Gangs of Wasseypur into an HBO series and tell the larger story. But that it didn't exist then. So I kept saying that, and fortunately, उस समय क्या हुआ कि आज तक suddenly got scared and backed out after reading just the first episode. And they said, we can't put this out. So there was this meeting between Arindam Mitra, who was the producer, Aditya Bhattacharya, and I kept trying to, so the idea was being abandoned. And I was desperate, and I was like, no, you can't do this, and you should make a film on this. So Aditya Bhattacharya looked at me and said, you see a film in it? And I said, yes, I see a film in it. He said, then why don't you do it? So I was literally handed over the film like that at just around the corner. I was sitting at just around the corner, and I was suddenly given the whole project and do it. And then I did not know what to do. And then I had Devashish Makhija was this very bright boy who was my AD.
Who I tried to get here today, but of course he's...
So he was my partner in crime. So his job was to do research. And I said, everything has to be written down in a chronicle order, like, in the way it happened. And my room was full of these pasted papers. And he was sitting there on the computer, and I write with my hand. And I write like, when I start writing, I start writing. I don't stop till I stop. So it was a 36 hours ordeal, longer for Devashish, because he did the research, and I kept writing, filling papers. I kept writing. I would throw the paper and Devashish will type it. I'll write, I'll throw the paper, Devashish will type it. 36 hours it took me, and we finished the script.
The humor in the film, the Dawood Fandse, or some of the unintentional humor that actually comes in, was that all? Were you forced to write that, or is that what you actually
No, humor from most of my movies actually is on the spot. It also comes from the actor. Gajraj Rao is a very funny man. He's an ad filmmaker. He's an actor that I've admired long. He was in Bandit Queen. He's very funny man. Vijay Maurya is the guy who's written most of the funny ads, who played Dawood. So they're very funny, and it's also the location. Because the problem was we really could not shoot the White House. So the Dawood's house was shot in 3 different locations. One was in Dubai, one was in Lonavala, the main house, and one was somewhere else. So that house in Lonavala, it was a White House, and we actually had no money, we had no budget, so we went for anything that was free. And the way the film was shot, because the entire crew went in 2 buses, and we could not afford hotels, so we slept in the bus in the night and shot in the day. and we moved to the next location. We slept in the bus in the night, shot in the day. So that's how we're making this film. We had no money at all. So when we reached this location, we had to do it, and there was no other option. And there were these glasses and window, and the geography of the place was such that I did not know how to do the scene. And then there was actually this woman cleaning the glasses, and that's where I got the idea for the scene. So the geography of the place kind of made that scene funny.
Because I always thought that the humor was always, it happens sometimes when you're trying to make a film which is slightly more commercial. You're trying to make it a little bit more appealing to the wider audience and that kind of stuff.
I have never made a single film thinking it won't be commercial. Someone in trade tells me otherwise.
What would you do differently in the film now, in Black Friday?
I don't know. I think Black Friday is my most honest film and most naive film. I was very naive that I believed that I can do everything and get away with it. And I was also naive to the point that I actually could have saved more money. I insisted that I want to shoot on everything where it happened. So I carried the entire crew in a bus. And I was lucky that the producer was Midday would never produce the film. They would have told me you're being an idiot. So I actually carried my entire crew everywhere it happened. And when you go into the ocean and in the darkness, I realized, why did I have to come to Srivardhan? I could have done it in Warsaw. So I was very naive, and so I very honestly and objectively put out everything there. It was only after Black Friday that, and what I went through for the whole process of Paanch and Black Friday included, that now I camouflage things a little bit.
Is that a good thing?
Sometimes it's a good thing, sometimes it's not. It's not really a good thing. In the sense, I wish we can make more political movies and we can just actually address things. I would love to make a comedy movie where people are discussing the politics of the country and by taking names, and that's what makes the film worthwhile. And we can't do it in this country. This country shit scared of why do you think we only have names and no surnames in our movies? Anybody takes offense, and I think somewhere our system thinks that if somebody feels offended, they need to hold their hands, and people need to go out and deal with it. People have to grow up and they have to learn to deal with what they find offending, and they find anything offending. And most of the time they find things offending because they want to be the news, because they can tell people I feel offended.
In terms of your influences for Black Friday, I mean, I know you watch a lot of movies, and I know it's not like you're looking at something and sort of like borrowing from it, but there's so much of a stream of consciousness that you're sort of like just imbibing from the movies you watch. Was there anything specific in terms of Black Friday that you were looking at?
No, I was not really. I don't really do things in the sense like that. I watch a lot of movies, but not really influenced in terms of shooting style for a movie. If you look at right from past to now, I have actually shot films in the same way. It's a lot of style emerges in editing, because my only way to shoot is follow the character. That's all I do. I do nothing. I just follow the character. So if you actually look at all the shots in all my movies, I'm only following the character. And I only like to observe, to be non-intruding. And that's how Black Friday was shot. But the film that I know that, in terms of, at the back of the mind, there was this largeness of the impact that the film should create by the end of it. I only had one film in mind, which was Battle of Algiers. And there's also Salvador Giuliano. Those two things were always at the back of my head.
And about your edit, I remember that it was a sprawling 5-hour, which we all saw in Spectral Harmony. Everybody came out holding their head saying, "We're fucked." What? How did you? And honest to God, I've seen you go from that edit to a film which I just completely loved and I could watch over and over again while catching the trailer. So, tell me about that process.
My process of editing is the same, and you have been part of many. I first make a very honest to what I've shot longer edit. And I show it to people, and more often than not, everybody comes out saying, "What is this?" It has happened with Gangs of Wasseypur, it's happened with every film of mine, including Devdi. So, and then we don't discuss things. My only process is, because when you discuss, they'll say something and I'll defend myself. So I never encourage discussion. I say, you go back and write down exactly what you feel. So I just read a one point, so it's a one-way conversation. So I like to read everything, and sometimes I get angry and I trash the mail and this and that. And then slowly, some thing that makes sense stays with you. And then I do a second round, and I again call a different set of people and show them the film, and does it communicate? And that's how it's always been my process. I think the most films I spend at 8 months to a year on post-production. Wasipur I spent 1.5 years on post-production.
Two filmmakers work so closely with each other. How much do you shape each other? And is it hard? Is it hard? Do you get insecure about your process watching him?
I'll tell you a story about Vikram. And the reason also, because when we made Phantom and I wanted Vikram, he's a very big part of my life and my professional life. And my personal life, his wife is a very big part of it. She's actually my foster mother in Bombay. She tries to mother me. But it's like the most amazing. Vikram is very incorruptible. He's honest to the point of being a fault. And it's very, like if you ask any of our partners, they'll say, he's the most important factor there. And a lot of people outside question us, he's made one Udan. And why are we forming a company? People don't understand those things. Vikram is a guy who the day Devdi released, he wrote the first draft, I wrote the second draft. And I went and shot with my thing and he had this fight. We always fought about it. So when the film, and he had issues with the film. So the day Devdi released, I got 5 stars in Times of India. I was very happy. The first call early in the morning, the only man who can make me cry is Vikram. I said, did you see the Times of India 5 stars? I said, yeah. He said, shove them up your ass because the film could have been better. No, so that's the relationship is needed, and I'm surrounded by people. My worst critics, and forget what you read in the paper, my worst critics are people immediately around me.
The thing is that there's a fearlessness to him which is absolutely fantastic. In the sense that which is why I think even when he's talking about in Black Friday, at the time that he was the film was being made, and I'm saying the times in general that the movie was being made in at that point in time, and for him specifically, and for to still go out there and make that film with a certain amount of fearlessness, and like he's saying, going in a bus and shooting it and just trying to make this epic film with no fear at all. And he's made all his films like that, whether it's Velvet, whether it's Wasipur, whether it's anything. And that for me is the most inspiring kind of stuff. We're both very different. When we write scripts also it's very different. He takes 3 days, I take 3 years. There's a difference in the approach, but I think that's exactly that's why I like working with him. Because he gives me such a different perspective on my stuff. I do the same for him. So I think that's the...
I want to ask you the first, in the history of Indian cinema, the 3 chase sequences which I always remember. One from Shan, second from Dar, and third is Black Friday. Can you just tell us about the humor part as well, which went around making of the chase sequence?
See, like I said, humor for me is always in the moment. And the chase sequence was not designed. My whole idea about the chase sequence with the actors was that, listen, you have to run very close and you have to run. You have to really run. Don't act like you're running. Run. And I told the actor who was running from the cops that you can't let them catch you. And I told the actors chasing him that you can't let him go. I said, if you grab his shirt, grab his shirt. And I would just set them free and I would just shoot. That's how I shot. And I would give them places to run. So all the humor came in because the place where they were actually walking, if you tried to run, you will slip into the nala. So you had no other choice but to walk. So I would give them this very odd things, run on the pipe and with things coming. And it was literally, we were shooting it like a game. I would not tell the actor where the cops are coming from. And I would shoot him, and suddenly he would see, and he had to stop. And in one shot, you'll see he's looking on his right. He's actually looking at me. What do I do now? So, and it is like playing a game. You create a situation. It's the same thing I do with all my movies. I give them a situation, and they figure it out, and it becomes very real and natural. And that's why they also get very involved and they enjoy the process.
As you were saying, it was very less budget and all, but the way you shot the bomb blast outside the Churchgate station and all, how did you recreate? It was like really crazy.
That was the most expensive sequence. That was Khoja Bungalow. So what we did was we shot the real stock market, and the exterior stock market we recreated around Khoja Bungalow. And we didn't have the CG. You can still see a Siemens car T-shirt, and you can see a Bisleri bottle in the shot. We did not have the money to even erase those things. So we shot outside the Khoja Bungalow, and it's the idea of how you shoot, because I've been trained in a way where we never had money to shoot. So I would always shoot in a way where you suggest. Most of the people feel that violence in the film. I always keep the violence off screen. Reason for keeping violence off screen is also because I can't afford to shoot it. And if I don't believe it's real, there's no point shooting it. So I always shoot it off screen. But the impact of shooting it off screen is what I realized with my first film. And people reacted so much they banned the film. There was nothing actually on screen. Everything was suggested. But the impact of it was so much that they banned the film. And they could not point out where I'm showing what. So it is something that I discovered. So I started shooting that, and we never had any money. Like also the chase sequence, the reason to do the chase sequence was, in the script, there were as many as some 22 arrests. When I shot the first arrest, I shot the second arrest, which is not there in the film. And then I said the dynamics of all the arrest sequences are just the same. In the sense, police will come, catch a guy, and I was actually following the police records. And the important thing was also I needed to show the area that Bandra East mein jo hai, where the people come from. So the only way to do it was do a chase, where you see where these people came from and how they lived. Because how they lived also had a lot to do with why they did what they did, because they were starving and they came from that place. So I wanted to use the entire geography of the place, show how they lived right on the edge of Nala with those kind of no hygiene, nothing. And from there, these guys came and they were easily manipulated with a lure of a whole lot of things. So that was also very important for me. So chase actually became a metaphor for that how police kept going after them and they were almost within the reach, and sometimes they got caught, sometimes they escaped, eventually they all got caught.
Won't we have edit in mind while we shoot, when we take the shot?
Yeah, whenever I'm shooting you, I edit simultaneously in my head.
Then why is it taking so long? Like 1.5
It's a process. It's a long process.
It takes time. The thing is that you have to watch the film, then you rewatch the film, then you show it around to people, then you watch it again. So editing is one part, then there's sound design, then there's background music, then there's final mixing, then there's grading. There's a process to filmmaking which anyway, even if you didn't take time, would take at least 6 months. So we like to take longer.
It's also how you look at cinema. Most of our films release within 2 months of shooting gets over. They're all very brightly lit and they cater to a certain kind of a thing. The kind of realism we try to get and using all those elements to that minute details takes a lot of time. Kunal Sharma needs minimum 3 months on every film. And we also grading, we take a lot of time. So we take time.
Anurag, you've talked about the whole cop scenes, like how you've done it based on police records and all. But we all know that police records are not always to be trusted and all. So
yeah,
like,
there was a counterpoint in Sebastian's voices.
Yeah.
So if you see the sequence in the film, which is not really in the book also, is that whole sequence where Rajkumar Khurana was humiliated. That sequence has been taken out from the book. It was edited out from the book. But it was in voices. And a lot of police torture sequences were not part of police records or Black Friday. But they were part of voices. So I borrowed a lot from there too. So you have to have you get objectivity when you read all sides of story. So I use those sequences from that.